The discovery of my wife, Brenda's infidelity, didn't just shatter my world. It obliterated the quiet domestic bliss I never thought I'd want, but had come to desperately need. For years, Arthur Caldwell, a 35-year-old sales representative for Apex Solutions, standing 5 feet 10 inches tall, with brunette hair and eyes, had meticulously cultivated an unencumbered existence, a life free from the commitments that often accompany relationships. My primary ambition centered on professional advancement, and the thought of a domestic life, much less becoming the head of a household, was alien to my youthful aspirations. Fate, however, often orchestrates unforeseen shifts with a cruel sense of irony. Encountering Brenda felt akin to being swept into a tempest. She wasn't merely attractive, she was irresistibly captivating, possessing a curvaceous physique I had always admired, drawing me into a realm I had never envisioned embracing. Our early marriage, though marked by its share of challenges, saw Brenda swiftly establish herself as the bedrock of my existence. We tied the knot early, and despite the typical newlywed squabbles, her presence anchored me. The arrival of Willow fundamentally altered everything. Fatherhood presented a formidable prospect, yet it concurrently bestowed upon me a clarity I hadn't known I required. The sheer delight in observing my daughter's development, from her first faltering steps to her inquisitive questions about the world, paired with Brenda's unwavering constancy, made me believe I had discovered a bond both singular and indissoluble. My spouse and child now constituted my entire existence, even amidst life's unforeseen adversities. With only 8 years remaining until Willow departed for university, Brenda and I already harbored aspirations of finally enjoying our home to ourselves, pursuing any desire at our leisure, a future that now seemed a cruel mirage. Willow informed me of the necessity of my presence at her academy to introduce myself to her new instructor, Ms. Everly. Her former educator had departed to tend to her spouse following a cardiac event. I had always appreciated Ms. Everly's traditional pedagogical style, which seldom mandated parental participation unless Willow encountered difficulties. Typically, such engagements fell to my wife, Brenda, who actively participated in the Academy's Parent-Teacher Association or its contemporary equivalent. She was petite, asserting a height of 5 feet, though my measurements consistently placed her nearer to 4 feet 11 inches. However, Willow adamantly insisted on my attendance, citing her mother's recent peculiar demeanor. She whispered to me during dinner, "Mom's been acting really weird, Dad. She's always on her phone, always busy, and she barely laughs anymore. Please, you have to come." With some reluctance, I consented, though the prospect of venturing into uncharted social terrain was far from appealing. Willow's observation held true. Brenda's behavior had indeed grown peculiar. Her previous instance of such conduct coincided with her pregnancy with Willow. Back then, she had quietly made preparations for the infant prior to even informing me, partly due to my previously expressed lack of enthusiasm for procreation. Yet, the instant my little girl entered the world, as I severed her umbilical cord and delivered that initial tender pat, she instantly became my entire universe. This time, Brenda's oddness manifested differently. She'd come home late, often smelling faintly of something unfamiliar, then proceed directly to the shower, a habit she had adopted with increasing frequency of late, at least once or twice weekly. At that juncture, I attributed little significance to it. Women generally having a higher propensity for showering than men, I reasoned. She'd also become unusually quiet, distracted during conversations, and less affectionate, often brushing off my attempts at closeness with a mumbled excuse about stress at work. In retrospect, I acknowledge my considerable naivety. Candidly, most individuals share this trait. Matrimony rests upon foundations of affection and confidence, trusting that one's beloved will neither inflict harm nor disloyalty. One never anticipates them to fracture that reliance. Love often veils our perception. Perpetual paranoia regarding betrayal indicates an unhealthy relationship. Indeed, where trust is absent, true love cannot exist. Certain individuals might presume, I would detect if my wife were unfaithful. Believe me, when such circumstances arise, you are frequently the final person to comprehend them. The following day, I arrived at Willow's Academy precisely at pickup time, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the playground. What I had not anticipated was having my jaw drop in astonishment. Positioned before Willow's classroom stood the most exquisite woman I had ever beheld. Clad in denim that hugged her form tastefully in a simple, elegant blouse, her back was turned to me as I entered. Her physique was remarkable, exhibiting an inverted heart-shaped silhouette that was both graceful and strong. Upon her turning, her luminous smile and flowing cascade of amber hair cascading over her shoulders left me momentarily spellbound. Her bust was not as ample as Brenda's, but frankly, who gave a thought to that? I gazed at her for such an extended period that I failed to notice she was addressing me. Educators of this caliber were not prevalent during my formative years. Unusually tall for a woman, likely 5 feet 8 inches, and considerably more slender than Brenda. Not that I was comparing them, but she was truly stunning. Yes, stunning is the precise term. Daddy, Willow interjected sharply, a hint of annoyance in her voice. Serena is speaking to you. Pardon me, I stammered, feeling my face flush. I'm momentarily disengaged. I'm, Willow's father, Arthur Caldwell, though you may refer to me as Arthur. I extended my hand, and she clasped it warmly, her touch surprisingly firm, revealing another radiant smile, a smile capable of persuading anyone to anything. My apologies for the brief notice, she reiterated with a melodic, gentle, southern inflection that extended each word into a captivating cadence, making me want to listen indefinitely. I'm new to this institution, but the Academy highly values parental engagement. Willow stands out as one of my most intelligent, amiable, and cooperative pupils. I smiled proudly at Willow, and she reciprocated, extending her hand. I offered a sharp high five, but she frowned. Dad, she grumbled, when someone holds out their hand, you meant to give them money. Serena, or Ms. Maxwell as she had insisted I address her, continued. Neither you nor your spouse has participated in any projects or committees this academic year. Ms. Maxwell, I interjected. Please call me Serena, she said. Doesn't the PDA count? I inquired, feeling a surge of confusion. It does, she replied, again with that charming smile. Are you a member of the PDA? Well, no, I conceded, but my wife is. She attends every meeting on Wednesday evenings. She's never missed one. Serena's expression subtly changed, her smile faltering for a fraction of a second as she stated, Perhaps I am mistaken, but the PDA convenes on Tuesdays and solely on the third Tuesday of each month. My stomach plummeted, a cold knot forming in my gut. The air seemed to grow thick with unspoken implications. I urgently needed to ascertain the truth behind Brenda's activities. Why not consider joining one of our committees or clubs? In any case, she suggested empathetically, her voice softening, as if sensing my internal turmoil. That way, even if your wife is indeed part of the PDA, you'll still be involved. Her tone conveyed a compassion that suggested she comprehended my predicament far better than she let on. I scanned the list of activities and ultimately settled on track and field. I believe I could assist with this, I stated. I'm not an expert, but I run daily and have completed several marathons. That's ideal, she responded with a genuine smile. They meet on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 5 in the afternoon. En route home, Willow and I made a stop at a popular fast food spot. It wasn't the most nutritious meal, but she adored it, and it spared me the task of cooking. I knew Brenda wouldn't arrive home before us in any case, despite her finishing work earlier than I did. Her new, mysterious routine always kept her out. While some individuals prefer to contemplate matters while seated in their favorite armchair or during an extended stroll, my chosen method of reflection involved washing my crimson Mustang GT. As I rinsed the gleaming vehicle, the steady flow of water seemed to help organize my thoughts regarding Brenda's recent conduct. The PDA meeting revelation replayed in my mind. I realized that PDA meetings occurred only once monthly, not on a weekly basis. Brenda had become a PDA member 2 months prior, implying she had engaged in other activities 6 to 8 times since then, pretending they were PDA meetings. The deception felt like a physical blow. As I lathered the car, the suds dripping down the vibrant red paint, I decided to contact a friend. "Hey, Finn," I greeted when he answered. "Hey, Arthur. How are things?" he inquired, his voice cheerful. "Not great." I chuckled, a hollow sound. "Remember when you suspected Lena was being unfaithful? What was the name of that agency you employed?" "Oh man, don't bring that up," he said, chuckling nervously. "All that did was enrich a few lawyers and private investigators." "Well, I informed you she wasn't cheating," I replied, recalling the painful misunderstanding. "She was merely attending classes at the local community college because she believed you were embarrassed by her accent and limited English proficiency." "Yes, I recall," he said with a laugh that quickly faded. "Anyway, the agency was called Summit Inquiries. They're listed in the directory, and they're quite effective." "Thanks, Finn," I said before concluding the call. Finn and I had been acquainted since childhood, playing baseball together, sharing countless adolescent secrets. I contacted directory assistants to obtain the number for Summit Inquiries and got in touch with them. They informed me that someone could be at my residence within minutes, as their office was conveniently close. I was meticulously polishing my gleaming alloy rims, lost in thought, when a discreet, unmarked car pulled up. A man exited, donned sunglasses, and quipped, "Your chrome is so brilliant. I nearly went blind." He smiled, then added, "My father owned a 70 Boss 302 Mustang, which he coddled as much as you do this one." I nodded, grinning faintly despite my turmoil. I, too, held an affection for classic Mustangs. "Arthur Caldwell," I introduced, offering my hand. "My friends call me Arthur." The man shook my hand firmly. "Max Sterling," he said, "but my friends call me Max." At 5 feet 4 inches, his nickname seemed apartment. "Why don't we head inside and talk?" I suggested. On our way in, I outlined my suspicions, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. He listened attentively, his expression unreadable, then guided me through their range of services. He installed a recording device on the landline, and, noting that I covered her mobile phone bill, mentioned they might be able to monitor that as well. He also strategically placed small, almost invisible cameras around the house, providing me with the option of viewing live feeds or receiving a weekly DVD summary. I chose the weekly DVD option, which was more fiscally manageable. "How substantial will these costs be?" I inquired, bracing myself. "What value do you place on peace of mind?" he countered, subtly indicating it wouldn't be inexpensive. "Ultimately, you'll deem it worthwhile," he appended. "Elaborate," I requested, needing more than a philosophical answer. "Well, if she's not being unfaithful," he explained, "you'll ascertain that conclusively and can release your uncertainties. You'll regain trust in her and can concentrate on fortifying your marriage. All the stress currently plaguing you will dissipate, and you'll experience profound relief. Conversely, if she is cheating, you'll possess concrete evidence to confront her or even to initiate divorce proceedings if it escalates to that point. Either way, you'll cease feeling foolish and can progress with your life." "I understand your perspective," I affirmed as he departed, the weight of his words settling heavily upon me. I resumed polishing my vehicle, the mundane task a stark contrast to the chaos in my mind. Approximately 30 minutes later, Brenda arrived home. She appeared cheerful, almost unnervingly so, and approached to observe my work, a novel habit for her. "Brenda, I don't appreciate being watched while I'm working," I informed her, my tone flat. It's not you. It simply agitates me. All right, dear, she said, her smile not reaching her eyes. I'll see you when you come inside. Upon completing work on the car, I enter the house. Brenda sat beside me as I watched television, exhibiting an uncharacteristic amiability, asking about my day with an interest she hadn't shown in weeks. It felt peculiar, almost performative. Desiring some personal space, I rose and proceeded to take a shower. When I emerged, Brenda was still there, sitting exactly where I'd left her. Rather than joining her on the sofa, I opted for the armchair, putting a physical distance between us. I'm retiring for the night, she announced, stifling yawn. Are you joining me? I'll be there shortly. I merely wished to catch the news, I responded, my gaze fixed on the screen, though I absorbed none of the headlines. Later, I feigned falling asleep on the sofa when she entered to rouse me for bed. I simply rolled over, as if in a deep slumber, hoping she wouldn't press the issue. The subsequent morning, I awoke early, the first rays of dawn barely piercing the blinds. I prepared for work, retrieved coffee from the kitchen, and briefly watched as Brenda and Willow ambled into the kitchen, yawning. I kissed Willow goodbye, lingering a moment longer than usual, and departed before Brenda perceived my absence. Later, Brenda telephoned me in my workplace, her voice tinged with hurt. You didn't bid me farewell this morning, she stated, the accusation clear. Did I do something amiss? What are you referring to, Brenda? I inquired, feigning ignorance. For 16 years, you've consistently kissed me goodbye, unless we were upset. Even when we quarreled, you did it to ease the tension. It means a great deal to me, she explained, her voice cracking slightly. I'll endeavor to remember, I replied curtly, my heart cold. What transpired last night? I was in the mood, she added, her tone shifting to one of subtle invitation. I dismissed her comment, taking care not to reveal my suspicions. I know you have your PDA meeting this evening, Brenda, I stated coolly, the word PDA tasting like ash on my tongue. We'll converse later. Frustrated, the phone call replaying in my mind, I contacted my friend, Finn, who was the attorney your aunt consulted for her divorce. I asked, cutting straight to the point. Finn hesitated, a momentary silence on the line. I don't recall, but I can provide you with the number of the one I was planning to use, he offered cautiously. No thanks, that individual was too lenient. I countered, needing someone formidable. I desire someone assertive. I'll call my aunt and get the number, Finn replied, sensing the gravity of my tone. Minutes later, Finn telephoned back. Her name is Eleanor Vance. She's affiliated with the Pinnacle Law Group and possesses a reputation as the most formidable divorce attorney in the state. I immediately called her office. When she answered, her initial tone was sharp, almost hostile. What do you want now? She snapped, surprising me. Caught off guard, I cautiously inquired, Is this Eleanor Vance? Her tone softened instantly, a flicker of professional courtesy returning. My apologies, I mistook you for my ex-husband. Reassured by her assertiveness, the very trait I sought, I elucidated my situation, pouring out the details of Brenda's peculiar behavior, the PDA lie, and my hiring of a private investigator. Initially, she was skeptical, accusing me of being another unfaithful husband attempting to retain her services to prevent his wife from doing so. Allow me to clarify, I stated firmly, my voice unwavering. I have never been unfaithful. My wife is betraying me and our daughter. I lack conclusive proof yet, but I am collaborating with a private investigator. I need to act swiftly to mitigate the impact on my daughter. Her tone shifted, a newfound empathy in her voice. I'm sorry you're enduring this. Let's arrange a meeting this afternoon to discuss your case. For the remainder of the day, I found it arduous to concentrate, replaying every detail, every suspicious glance, every unexplained shower in my mind. For a fleeting moment, I questioned if I had somehow failed Brenda, if I was somehow responsible for her actions, But reality swiftly reminded me that her infidelity was not my culpability. Just before 3 in the afternoon, my phone rang. A warm, subtly southern voice instantly brightened my disposition. "I trust it's acceptable to call," Serena said, her voice a soothing balm. "I wish to remind you about our meeting tomorrow afternoon. Please wear something comfortable. We'll engage in a light group run with the children." "Understood," I replied, attempting to sound nonchalant despite the unexpected pleasure of her call. Her playful farewell lingered in my thoughts, prompting me to wonder if her words held a deeper meaning than she revealed. However, I dismissed the notion, uncertain if it was merely my imagination or just a desperate man grasping at straws. After collecting Willow from the academy, we spent a couple of hours engaging with the Adventure Realm game on the PlayStation, its vibrant graphics and strategic gameplay a welcome distraction. Later, I prepared grilled steaks and a fresh salad for dinner, a simple meal I knew Willow enjoyed. Willow retired to her room to attend to homework and converse with her companions online, while I perused Mustang components online, convinced my vehicle required a front splitter, a small modification to exert some control over at least one aspect of my life. I settled in to watch Steel Guardian 2 on Blu-ray, the futuristic action a stark contrast to my present reality. The surround sound system was so robust that I failed to hear Brenda enter. She encircled me with her arms, startling me as she attempted to kiss me on the neck. I stiffened, rising quickly, creating distance between us. "That's what comes from blasting the volume," she teased, trying to lighten the mood. "Now, is Willow meant to sleep?" "Apologies," I mumbled, turning back to the television, avoiding her gaze. "What smells so appealing?" she inquired, sniffing the air, her face expectant. "Steaks." "Willow, and I presumed you wouldn't desire dinner, as you typically shower and rest after your meetings," I stated, the word meetings loaded with unsaid accusation. She hesitated, her smile faltering, then offered a curt nod and proceeded to the bedroom. Her reaction made me question if I had revealed too much, if she suspected my suspicions. Subsequently, I reflected upon everything Eleanor Vance, my attorney, had requested me to compile: income and tax records, an inventory of assets, and particulars concerning Willow's custody. I hoped the divorce would conclude amicably, a faint, naive hope. Community property laws dictated an even division, though the house, belonging to my parents for generations, was excluded from this. I desired full custody of Willow, with generous visitation rights for Brenda, and simply wished for it to be finalized so I could progress. "Are you joining me in bed?" Brenda inquired, appearing in the doorway, her voice soft but insistent as I reviewed my plans late into the night. "Perhaps later," I replied, my gaze fixed on the ceiling. "Why are you avoiding me?" she pressed, stepping closer. "Did I do something wrong, Brenda?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, yet laced with a raw edge of frustration. "For 2 months, you've been distant, preoccupied. Willow, and I never know which version of you is returning home, which persona you'll adopt. Perhaps we're simply affording you space to ascertain things, to figure out whatever it is you're trying to figure out," I stated, my frustration overflowing, the words tumbling out despite myself. Grabbing my car keys, I headed for the door, needing to escape the suffocating tension. "Where are you off to?" she asked, tears welling in her eyes, her voice trembling. "For a drive to clear my head," I stated flatly, unwilling to offer any comfort. "Should I come? Perhaps we can talk," she offered, her hand reaching out. "No, Willow doesn't need to be awakened by this, unless, of course, you've forgotten she's here because I'm the one consistently caring for her," I retorted sharply, the words stinging with deliberate cruelty. Brenda began to weep openly, her hands covering her face, reaching for me as I stepped away. "Arthur, I love you and Willow, you know that. You have a peculiar method of demonstrating it," I stated, my voice devoid of emotion, walking out into the cool night air. Navigating my Mustang through the night was liberating. The engine's formidable roar, a symphony of controlled power, and the attention it commanded, even in the deserted streets, reminded me of the raw power and freedom it afforded. Yet my thoughts persistently revolved around Brenda. What could she possibly be contemplating? Why jeopardize everything? Our home, our family, our future, for another person. Our intimate life had been satisfactory, never lacking, and I knew I was not deficient as a husband. Was she simply bored, seeking novelty, or was this more than a physical liaison? Her deteriorating demeanor toward Willow suggested something more profound, a deeper emotional detachment. I drove aimlessly for an hour, the speedometer climbing and falling with my restless thoughts, before the pull of responsibility for Willow brought me home. The house was dark, and I presumed Brenda had retired for the night, probably exhausted from her secret life. After a swift, cold shower, I slipped into bed, remaining on my side to preserve distance until I definitively understood the situation. Brenda slid closer, her warmth a jarring presence against my cold skin. "I'm sorry," she murmured softly, her breath tickling my ear. "Work has been stressful. I hadn't realized how it was affecting me. How can I compensate you?" "Treat Willow better," I replied curtly, my voice flat. "For now." "I was envisioning something more personal," she said, her hand tracing a path across my stomach, moving lower with deliberate intent. When she moved lower, I intercepted her hand and gently moved it away. "What's amiss?" she inquired, stunned. In 14 years, I had never rebuffed her advances. "I require sleep. I have a significant day tomorrow," I stated, rolling over my back to her. "But good night, Brenda," I said firmly, concluding the conversation with an unyielding finality. The following morning, I awoke feeling remarkably rejuvenated, a sense of grim determination replacing the previous night's turmoil. After a swift breakfast, I proceeded to our home office, its quiet solitude a welcome refuge, and commenced organizing the documents Eleanor Vance had requested: tax returns, income statements, and a detailed inventory of our assets and obligations pertaining to Willow. By lunchtime, I had faxed everything to Eleanor's office so she could initiate the drafting of the divorce papers. Now, all I required was proof, incontrovertible evidence, and I hoped Max had made headway. Throughout the years, I had encountered various maxims concerning marriage and divorce, and I was beginning to doubt their veracity, finding them simplistic and insufficient for the complex tapestry of human emotion. The first posited that one could not simply cease loving someone unless that love had never been genuine. I once subscribed to this belief, a romantic idealist, but now I understood otherwise. Love can unequivocally diminish, contingent upon circumstances, upon choices made and trust betrayed. Just 3 days prior, I had loved Brenda with every fiber of my being. I believed her to be my soulmate, the woman with whom I would grow old, the mother of my children and the keeper of my heart. However, the dawning realization of her potential betrayal had fundamentally altered everything. If she had been unfaithful, we might still grow old, but it certainly wouldn't be in unison, not sharing the same life, the same bed. The second adage suggested that men are perpetually oblivious when their wives are being unfaithful. Husbands are frequently depicted as clueless, unless they fortuitously stumble upon irrefutable evidence, such as an unfamiliar vehicle in the driveway. Even then, some wives manage to contrive explanations. This description did not align with me whatsoever. I was not naive, and I had no intention of allowing her to lead me on indefinitely, perpetuating this charade. I needed to progress, although I recognized I could not entirely expunge her from my existence. She was Willow's mother, an undeniable fact. For the ensuing 8 years, we would have to navigate custody arrangements, graduations, and significant life milestones, a reluctant partnership for the sake of our daughter. Hopefully, with time, I would encounter someone new and overcome her, perhaps even ceasing to feel repulsion whenever I saw her. As I worked throughout the afternoon, my thoughts repeatedly drifted back to the genesis of our relationship, to the intoxicating early days. I recalled the profound depth of my affection for her, how fervently I had hoped we would remain together eternally, a bond forged in mutual adoration. My emotions fluctuated wildly between indignation and yearning, between furious betrayal and a lingering sadness for what we once had. At one juncture, I even contemplated marriage counseling or attempting to forgive her. That notion dissipated in less than a second. There was no conceivable way I could forgive her if she had proven unfaithful. Entertaining affectionate thoughts about another individual was one matter, a fleeting human experience, but acting upon them constituted crossing a definitive boundary, an unforgivable transgression. I had experienced fleeting attractions before, even recently toward Willow's new instructor, Serena, her vivacious spirit and infectious smile sparking a quiet interest. However, there exists a substantial distinction between admiring someone and betraying one's marital vows. Most men glance. It is human nature, but when you carry it further, when you act upon those thoughts, that is when everything undergoes a fundamental transformation, when trust is irrevocably shattered. Brenda telephoned me at work, her name flashing on my caller ID, but I did not answer, letting it ring until it went to voicemail. She then tried my mobile phone, but I ignored that as well, my resolve hardening. She left a voicemail expressing her profound love for me and stating that we needed to converse, her voice laced with desperation. I listened to it, then promptly deleted it, unwilling to engage in her manipulative pleas. I collected Willow from the academy at the customary time. She appeared excited, though I couldn't recall the reason for her effervescence. "Dad, are we eating first or heading straight to Greenwood Park?" Willow inquired, bouncing on the balls of her feet. "Who mentioned we were going to the park today?" I replied, genuinely confused. "Oh no," she exclaimed, rolling her eyes with exasperated preteen flair. "You forgot, didn't you? You're supposed to assist with the track club today." We drove home, and I quickly changed into a tracksuit, assuming it was the appropriate attire for other volunteers or coaches, feeling a pang of guilt for my forgetfulness. I was prepared to depart when Willow reminded me to retrieve my tablet. I handed it to her. "Thanks, Dad," she said with a grin. "Now I have something to occupy myself while I observe you watching people run." Upon our arrival at Greenwood Park, I surveyed the area to ascertain where the children were congregating. The park was shaped like the letter B, with the parking lot situated at the summit and the trails and other amenities extending downhill past the vacant tennis courts. I discerned a cluster of familiar faces, including some parents and children Willow recognized. I joined the group, and a few minutes later, I glanced up the hill. A utility vehicle, sleek and silver, pulled into the spot adjacent to my Mustang, and I observed Serena exit and begin conversing with Willow as she descended the incline. I noted she was also attired in a tracksuit, a striking vision of athletic grace. Every father present seemed to collectively swallow when she joined the group and introduced herself, her southern accent weaving its charming spell. One gentleman, who had just expressed his eagerness for the teacher's arrival so he could depart, abruptly decided to remain and observe, rearranging his schedule with surprising haste. I chuckled internally. Serena elicited the same reaction from them as she had from me. I eagerly anticipated their hearing her voice and accent, knowing its captivating effect. Serena gathered the children and introduced me as her assistant or co-coach, her hand briefly, lightly touching my arm in a gesture of camaraderie. She elucidated that this was currently a cross-country club, not an official team. Practices would occur twice weekly, but she encouraged the children to run independently as well. If all progressed favorably, Tryouts for a cross-country team would be conducted in the autumn, with competitions against other schools. She informed the parents they could either remain or return in an hour to collect their children. Most opted to depart, until Serena prepared to initiate the run. When she shed her track pants to reveal incredibly toned, tight shorts, every father present determined to stay. Their plans abruptly changed. We assembled the children for a brief warm-up and commenced a leisurely group run along the trails. I lagged behind the group to ensure no one sustained injury or fell behind, my gaze sweeping the terrain. Despite the leisurely pace, all the children maintained it effortlessly, even those less physically conditioned. During our second circuit, Serena drifted back to join me, her stride even and graceful. "Hey there," she greeted with a radiant smile. "Are you all right?" I nodded silently, my thoughts still a tangled mess. "That bad?" she inquired, her eyes filled with genuine concern. "I've been contemplating it, and I wish to offer an apology." "For what?" I asked, puzzled, trying to pinpoint any offense. Well, I replayed our conversation in my mind and realized I might have been a touch insensitive, she explained, her brow furrowed slightly. "How could you have known?" I was oblivious enough to believe my wife was in the PDA and neglected to verify the meeting schedule. I retorted, a bitter laugh escaping me. "That's not clueless. It's trust," she replied, her voice soft and understanding. "It's indicative of a good person, a faithful heart. If I'm such a good person, why do I feel so awful?" I inquired, the pain evident in my voice. "Oh, it hurts terribly at first," she said, her tone shifting, a knowing quality in her voice. "But then after a while, it worsens." Her exaggerated expression of mock dourness elicited a genuine laugh from me, a lightness I hadn't felt in days. Even some of the children noticed her playful sadness. "It sounds as though you've experienced it firsthand," I observed, surprised by her candor. "Difficult to believe, though." "Why?" "Because I'm charming," she laughed, her laughter commencing as a delicate giggle and concluding with an endearing snort. My ex-spouse was so consumed by jealousy of every man who merely looked at me that I was unable to go anywhere or do anything. I would have adored having someone who trusted me, as you trust your wife. Trust is a profound gift, and if you don't trust someone, how can you genuinely claim to love them? She hesitated before continuing, her gaze distant. Even though he didn't trust me at all, he was the one being unfaithful. He claimed he required new conquests to remain entertained, to feel alive. He contested the divorce for months, making my life a living hell, but eventually, it was finalized. That was 3 years ago, and I'm only now able to socialize with men again, to even consider the possibility of a relationship. I'll do my best not to act like one then. I joked, a real smile playing on my lips. Men can't stand them. "I don't despise men," she said with a soft smile, "but I endured a period of considerable bitterness and self-pity. Where I originate from, if you cannot keep your man content, you are perceived as less of a woman, a failure." You are very much a woman," I blurted, my gaze involuntarily drifting to her perfectly toned legs. Throughout our entire run, it had been challenging not to notice her flawless figure and those tight shorts that seemed to have been painted on, even though her chest was not as full as Brenda's. Everything about her appeared perfectly proportional, beautifully balanced. "You noticed that, did you?" she teased with a knowing smile, her eyes sparkling with amusement. Her expression communicated a great deal. She was on some level interested in me, a magnetic pull between us. She understood the impact she had on men and was not averse to a little flirtation, a gentle dance of attraction. Following the second circuit, we guided the children back to the clearing from which we had commenced. We led them through a series of stretching exercises, commended their endeavors, and released them to their parents. Several parents lingered to pose questions about the club and the upcoming season. Most of the fathers, however, simply wished to ascertain how I had become Serena's assistant, and if any other positions were available, their motives transparent. Once the final child departed, Serena and I walked back to the parking lot. Willow hopped out of the car to greet us, her face flushed with excitement. "Dad, can we go to Slice and Dice Pizzeria?" she inquired, her eyes wide with anticipation. "I suppose so," I said, smiling, unable to deny her. "Good," she responded with a triumphant grin. "It's Serena's favorite restaurant." I glanced at Serena, a silent question in my eyes. "So, Serena, since it's your favorite place—" "Well, Mr. Caldwell," she replied, a teasing lilt in her voice, "I'd love to join you, but why don't we reconvene in 45 minutes? That allows both of us time to shower and change. One truly needs to be comfortable to savor pizza," she added with a warm laugh. "Okay, see you then," Willow exclaimed, tugging my arm impatiently. "Come on, Dad, you need a shower." 45 minutes later, Willow and I pulled up in front of the town's Soul Slice and Dice Pizzeria, its neon sign casting a familiar glow. We located a table and were perusing the menu when Serena entered, looking even more stunning in a casual dress that highlighted her figure. Every man in the establishment, forks mid-air, heads swiveled to gaze at her. She smiled at me, and I could feel its warmth from across the room, a private moment shared amidst the public gawking. However, I also sensed the eyes of every male present scrutinizing me, and I pondered what it would entail to date someone who commanded such significant attention, how one would manage the ceaseless stares and overtures. I stood and pulled out her chair, earning another radiant smile, a gesture of old-fashioned chivalry. We had a splendid time and consumed copious amounts of pizza, the conversation flowing effortlessly. Willow spent some time engaging with video games in the arcade section, affording Serena and me an opportunity to converse more intimately. The evening felt almost enchanted, a bubble of calm amidst my personal storm. At one juncture, Serena inquired about the state of my marriage, her gaze sympathetic. I provided her with an update, a condensed version of my turmoil, and she shook her head, a mournful expression on her face. "It's destined to deteriorate before it improves," she stated, her voice tinged with the bitterness of experience. "Wait until you're in your attorney's office, quarreling over a coffee table neither of you even desires, arguing about who gets the chipped mug. You reach a point where you begrudge them even a single item more than they've already extracted from you, a grim battle over scraps." She paused, then offered a slight, apologetic smile. "Apologies, this must be a dreadful first date for you." "This is a date," I questioned, the words surprising even myself. I wasn't certain I was prepared to commence dating yet. The idea felt too soon, too presumptuous. What if Brenda wasn't unfaithful? What if it transpired to be something else entirely, like a gambling addiction or a mental health crisis? That would render me the unfaithful one, wouldn't it, pursuing another woman while my wife struggled? I knew I ought to address this with Serena, to clarify the boundaries, but I refrained, unwilling to break the spell of the evening. I allowed the evening to progress organically, enjoying her company. Willow exhausted herself playing games and socializing with other children at the restaurant. By the time we departed, she was so fatigued that I had to carry her into the house and tuck her into bed, her small body heavy with sleep. We had remained out considerably later than I had intended, primarily because Serena was so effortlessly engaging in conversation. She possessed a knack for drawing you in, like a wind-up toy that simply kept going, sharing anecdotes and perspectives with captivating charm. When I slipped into bed later that night, I attempted not to awaken Brenda, but she rolled over and embraced me as soon as I lay down, her arms snaking around my waist. "Where did you two go?" she inquired, her voice thick with sleep. "Slice and Dice Pizzeria," I replied, my voice neutral. "I wondered why your tablet wasn't on the desk." "So Willow played with her friends. And you browse car parts, correct?" she said with a soft chuckle, her hand stroking my arm. "You're such an excellent father, dear, and a wonderful husband. I apologize for my recent behavior," she added softly, her breath warm on my skin. "I love you, Arthur. Shall we begin reconciling now?" Even in the faint moonlight, I could discern Brenda's form, her intentions unmistakable. She had come to bed unclothed, prepared to make amends, to bridge the distance between us. But all I could contemplate was the gnawing possibility that she had already been intimate with someone else, her body defiled by another man's touch. There was no way I would allow her to touch me until I ascertained the truth, until the doubt was dispelled. "Tonight is not opportune," I stated, leaving her stunned for the second consecutive night, her hand still on my arm. "I believe I'm developing a cold, and I don't wish for you to contract it." I wished I could read Brenda's thoughts as she lay there staring at me in the dim light. Did she believe I was naive, or was she simply consumed by guilt, trying to make amends before I discovered her deception? Either way, I was finished attempting to guess. The following morning, I departed early once more, showering, preparing, and making my exit before Brenda stirred. I roused Willow to remind her not to mention the preceding night's outing with Serena to her mother. "She barely speaks to me anyway, Dad," Willow replied with a shrug, her young wisdom cutting through my pretense. Why should today be any different? A couple of hours into my workday, a package arrived via courier. I signed for it, my hands trembling slightly, and opened it to discover 2 discs amidst a stack of papers, the logo of Summit Inquiries prominently displayed. I inserted one disc into my computer and played a file dated the previous Wednesday. The video depicted Brenda, my wife, entering a budget inn with a tall, nondescript man I barely recognized, his face blurred by the low-light camera. A few seconds later, the camera angle shifted, revealing them inside the room, an intimacy I never wanted to witness. The man was Victor Hayes, one of Brenda's colleagues, his identity now painfully clear. I did not watch for long, just enough to confirm they were not there to play cards, just enough to confirm my worst fears. Some men might have desired to view the entire video, perhaps even repeatedly, for some perverse sense of validation or pain. Not I. I felt nauseated, a cold dread washing over me. Serena had been correct. As unsettling as it was to suspect Brenda, witnessing the proof, the undeniable evidence, was far more distressing, especially when I observed things she permitted Victor to do that she had never even hinted at with me, intimacies she reserved for him. I made a duplicate of the video for Eleanor Vance, a copy of my shattered trust. I also copied the disc containing phone recordings and appended it to the file of documents, which encompassed details about Victor Hayes, their rendezvous, and other pertinent information gleaned from the investigator's report. With everything packaged and prepared, a grim sense of finality washed over me. The subsequent stages were now in motion, an irreversible trajectory. I contacted Summit Inquiries to express my gratitude for their exemplary work and inform them I no longer required their services. They had fulfilled their task, but their rates were substantial, and I saw no purpose in continuing to pay for a truth I now possessed. A couple of hours later, Eleanor called to inform me that everything was prepared. The documents were finalized, and all she had required was Victor's name to include him in the legal action. While our state did not permit lawsuits for alienation of affection, I could sue him for mental anguish owing to the stress his liaison with Brenda had inflicted upon Willow and me. She explained that we might not recover any financial compensation from Victor, but the objective was to dismantle his reputation. The lawsuit would apprise his wife and family of his actions and likely result in his job loss, particularly once we also filed against the company for fostering such an environment. Once the lawsuit became public record, it would pursue him during any future background checks, a scarlet letter on his career. It was a strategic maneuver, cold and calculating, and I could discern why Eleanor's fees were justified. She was a pit bull. She further elucidated that we would not deploy all our resources simultaneously. First, we would finalize the divorce and secure the settlement agreement, a clean break. Only after a judge's approval would we proceed to sue Victor and the company. This timing ensured Brenda's income at the point of settlement, making the division appear equitable before her inevitable termination. Once the settlement was signed, Brenda's potential job loss would no longer concern us. It was her problem, not mine. Eleanor also advised me to listen to the audio recordings on the second disc, if I had not already. Brenda had been contemplating terminating her relationship with Victor, a fleeting thought captured on tape. When Eleanor inquired if that altered my perspective, if it softened my resolve, my response was simple: nope. I informed her I required a day or two to determine when and how to serve the documents, and suggested serving them at Brenda's place of employment, emphasizing the public humiliation it would inflict and the clear message it would convey to her company's management. I assented to consider it, but happiness was far from my sentiment when I concluded the call. Only a cold, hard resolve. The weekend passed swiftly, a blur of activity and numb routine. On Saturday, I took Willow and her friends to the wildlife haven. The vibrant animal displays a welcome distraction from my inner turmoil. On Sunday, I meticulously polished my Mustang once more, finding solace in the repetitive, tactile task. By Monday, I found myself unable to face work, the thought of sitting in my office, pretending all was normal, unbearable. So I reported sick and took the car to a specialized shop to have a front splitter installed, a small act of self-indulgence. I did not trust myself to perform the task, given my current state of mind, fearing a lapse in judgment. While waiting, I telephoned Eleanor Vance and requested her to have Brenda served at work on Wednesday, a specific day chosen for maximum impact. Shortly thereafter, Brenda called, her voice sharp with suspicion. "Why aren't you at work?" she inquired. "I'm not feeling well," I replied, keeping my tone even. "Decided to have some work done on the car." "You could have informed me," she stated, a hint of accusation in her voice. "I felt foolish calling your office and discovering you weren't there. We're supposed to be married, you know. Sometimes it's difficult to discern," I stated, the double meaning hanging in the air. "Arthur, I love you," she said, her voice softening, an almost pleading tone. "Can't we just pledge to keep work-related stress out of our home?" "Fine, Brenda," I replied flatly, the hypocrisy a bitter taste in my mouth. "No more work stress at home." As I concluded the call, I muttered, "What a farce," refusing to credit her flimsy excuses. Minutes later, Serena called. Her warm southern timbre instantly uplifted my spirits, a ray of sunshine piercing the clouds. "Why aren't you at work?" she inquired, her voice light and teasing. "I'm feeling low," I admitted, explaining my impromptu day off and the car repair. "I didn't call to pry," she interjected, sensing my hesitation. "Sorry for unburdening," I stated. "You're not a burden," she replied, her voice firm. "I just don't want us to fall into the friend zone." "Friend zone?" I asked, surprised, a genuine laugh escaping me. "Absolutely not," she snapped playfully. "I've had enough friends. I called to plan our second date." "Torn about what?" I asked, still confused, the concept of dating so foreign. "Second dates are tricky. Do we bring Willow or not? She likes me, but after our second date, there's bound to be a goodnight kiss, and she might not enjoy witnessing that," Serena teased, her words hinting at an intimacy I hadn't dared to consider. "Are you planning to kiss me?" I asked nervously, my heart quickening. "Of course," she laughed, a bright, clear sound. "It's protocol." We planned a picnic for the following evening with Willow and her friend Chloe. At home, Willow pointed out Brenda wasn't working late, a rare occurrence. Brenda was in the kitchen preparing a meal, something she hadn't done in weeks, which surprised both of us. "Why are you home?" I inquired, trying to keep my voice neutral. "No overtime tonight," Brenda said, smiling, a forced cheerfulness about her. I desired family time. Later, she cornered me in the living room. I've been contemplating, what about having another baby? She asked, her eyes searching mine, desperation evident. I maintained a neutral expression, my mind reeling. I'll consider it, I stated, grabbing my keys, needing to escape this suffocating conversation. I spent the next hour photographing my Mustang, documenting its transformation, my personal escape, my act of defiance. Leaving Willow alone with Brenda wasn't ideal, but I required the space to clear my thoughts, to process the latest twist in this twisted saga. Driving along the deserted roads, the powerful engine humming a low lullaby, I found myself oscillating wildly between laughter and tears. Brenda's abrupt sweetness, her sudden interest in family and another child, could signify one of two possibilities. Either she genuinely wished to salvage our marriage, a desperate plea, or she was devising another scheme, a manipulative trap. Was she attempting to ensnare me with another child, believing it would bind me to her irrevocably? Did she suspect my knowledge of her affair and believe a pregnancy would compel me to stay, a shield against divorce? Or, even worse, was she already pregnant with this child and hoping I would shoulder the paternity of final, monstrous betrayal? Then there was the guilt, a gnawing worm in my conscience. Was I truly prepared to sever ties with her because she had betrayed me? Or was it because I had found someone superior waiting, a convenient excuse to move on? Was I any better than her, embarking on what felt like a date before the divorce was even finalized? I had not initiated anything with Serena, but I was not halting it either. It all boiled down to timing. Brenda had been unfaithful for over a month. In my estimation, the moment she slept with Victor Hayes, our marriage ceased to exist, the vows broken beyond repair. I felt justified in pursuing happiness elsewhere, in seeking solace and genuine connection. As for a baby, if Brenda were indeed pregnant, we would undergo a DNA test, a cold clinical necessity. If it were mine, I would provide child support and be involved in the child's life, but our marriage was irretrievably over. There was no turning back. I drove aimlessly for a while, relishing my car, but cognizant that I would eventually have to return home, to face the uncomfortable truth. Brenda was still awake when I walked in, sitting on the sofa, her face drawn. "Ready, Daddy?" she inquired, her voice attempting lightness. "No," I replied honestly, shaking my head. "Brenda, things are not fine simply because you have declared them so. You have been treating Willow and me poorly for months, neglectful and distant. Another baby will not rectify this, cannot erase the pain you've caused." Her face fell, the forced smile crumbling. "But I love you, Arthur," she stated, tears welling in her eyes. "I love you too," I said, a bitter acknowledgement. "But this isn't something we can mend overnight. Some things can't be mended at all." She looked devastated, her shoulders slumping. "Don't worry," I added, softening my tone slightly. "It's not as if you're already pregnant. We haven't been intimate in weeks." "Perhaps that's why I yearn for you so profoundly," she said, stepping closer, her hand reaching for mine, rubbing against me with a desperate urgency. "Brenda, stop!" I stated firmly, pulling my hand away. The weariness in my bones was immense. I went to the bedroom, leaving her weeping on the couch, her sobs echoing in the silence. The following morning, I showered, prepared, and departed for work without uttering another word. She remained on the couch, appearing disheveled and heartbroken. After work, I changed at the office, collected Willow, and proceeded to track practice as usual. Parents and children were gathered. Some women glanced in my direction, even the married ones, their curiosity palpable. It felt as though infidelity was prevalent in the atmosphere lately, a contagious disease. "Hey, remember I'm first in line," Serena teased, briefly encircling my waist with her hands as she walked past. It was not overtly inappropriate, yet it made her intentions apparent to anyone observing, a subtle claim. We commenced the group run, subtly increasing the pace. The children who easily kept up would likely constitute the track team. while the others would remain in the club to cultivate endurance and physical conditioning. Following practice, most parents and children departed, though a few fathers lingered to admire Serena, their lingering gazes unmistakable. Soon, it was just us and Chloe, who was spending the night with Willow. We drove to Greenwood Park for the picnic. Willow and Chloe sat on a bench, entertained by my tablet, their giggles punctuating the quiet, while Serena and I arranged the food on a blanket laid out on the grass. We sat facing each other, the setting sun casting a warm glow. Her eyes held something I had never seen in Brenda's: hope, yearning, and perhaps a hint of desperation, all singularly focused on me. "Too soon," she stated, her glance flicking toward the girls, "but hold that thought." We conversed about our lives, our aspirations, and our non-negotiables: fidelity, honesty, and trust, the very foundations Brenda had shattered. I inquired why anyone would ever betray her, such a kind and beautiful soul. She elucidated that men often became fixated on her physical appearance, captivated by the superficial. But once the novelty dissipated, she merely became another woman to them, and they would then move on to someone else, perpetually pursuing the next attractive face, never looking deeper. She desired someone who cherished her soul, not merely her outward form, someone who saw beyond the surface. Her foremost dream was simple: to be a wife and mother, to build a loving family. I conveyed that my needs mirrored hers, the quiet desire for a genuine connection. The girls joined us on the blanket a few times, grabbing snacks, their innocent chatter a backdrop to our deepening conversation. At one point, Willow inquired, her voice clear and direct, "Dad, is Serena your girlfriend now?" "I think she is," Chloe chimed in, confident in her assessment, "but maybe they're just friends because they don't kiss. My mom has 3 boyfriends, and they all kiss her." The innocent comment hung in the air. "Time to head home," I stated, standing abruptly. "I'll see you at practice Thursday," Serena said as she stood, a question in her eyes. "Nope," I replied, a decisive shake of my head. "Follow me home. It's time to move this along." "Move what along?" she asked, a small smile playing on her lips, curiosity sparking in her eyes. "The divorce and the rest of my life," I smiled, a lightness in my chest. We packed up, loaded the children into Serena's utility vehicle, and headed to my house, the unspoken promise of a new beginning hanging in the air. En route, I telefon Victor. "Victor, this is Arthur Caldwell," I stated cheerfully, a controlled calm in my voice. "Do I know you?" he inquired, tension palpable in his voice, a hint of recognition. He knew precisely who I was. There's no need for pretense. "Victor," I declared, my voice hardening, "you've been involved with my wife, Brenda, for 2 months now. At this juncture, we're practically acquainted, considering what we've shared." "It was her idea," Victor blurted, his voice defensive, betraying his guilt. "I care not whose idea it was," I replied, cutting him off. "As adults, it's time to discuss our alternatives. So, unless you prefer I converse with your wife about this, you need to arrive at my house now. I'll be home in 10 minutes. If you're not there within 15, I'll come locate you." When we pulled up, Brenda's car was already in the driveway, its presence a stark reminder of the drama awaiting us. Willow and Chloe dashed inside, while I lingered with Serena for a moment, the calm before the storm. "This will prove intriguing," I remarked, a wry smile. "Arthur, don't do anything rash," she cautioned, drawing me close as she perched on my car's hood, her touch grounding me. "Trust me," I said, meeting her gaze. "I'm not seeking a confrontation. Victor did not betray me. Brenda did. I merely desire my divorce and to move forward. This ought to be straightforward." "You overlooked something," she said, then leaned in and kissed me, a soft, deliberate kiss that sent a jolt through me. Time seemed to halt, the world fading to a blur. The moment concluded only when Brenda's furious screaming pierced the air, shattering the intimate bubble. "What are you doing?" she shrieked, her face contorted in a mixture of rage and disbelief. Moving on, I stated calmly, my voice steady, my eyes fixed on Brenda's livid face. Moving on with what? She snapped, her voice trembling with fury. But I raised a hand to silence her, my gaze shifting. Oh, good. Victor's here, I said as he pulled into the driveway, stumbling out of his car, his gaze fixed on Serena, who was now straightening up, a slight smirk on her face. I embraced her, a possessive gesture, and she drove off as Victor muttered, "That woman is exquisite," his eyes still glued to her retreating car. Brenda grew pale, her face draining of color as she processed the scene. "Why are you here, Victor?" she demanded, her voice a low growl. I invited him, I stated, a sense of control settling over me. "Let's go inside and talk." Inside, Victor sat down, nervously fidgeting, and immediately inquired, "Who was that woman?" My patience snapped, the last thread of civility breaking. I punched him squarely in the nose, a clean, swift blow that sent him sprawling in a chair. When he attempted to rise, wiping blood from his nose, I kicked him back down, a warning. "Why'd you strike me?" he yelled, holding his nose. "I summoned you here to converse," I stated coldly, my voice laced with steel. "You're a married man who pursues other men's wives, who breaks homes for a cheap thrill. You've already shattered my marriage, and now you're ogling Serena. Let me be unequivocally clear. Serena is off limits. Gaze at her again, and I swear you'll regret it. Brenda is entirely yours. Take her." "I don't desire Brenda," he scoffed, his tone dismissive. "I already have a wife, and she's more attractive." This was merely casual intimacy, a convenient distraction, and frankly, it wasn't even enjoyable. If it weren't so convenient, I wouldn't have bothered. "You're repulsive," Brenda snapped, her face twisted in disgust and humiliation, her betrayal now mocked by her lover. "I ended it because I realized Arthur might know, and you weren't worth losing my marriage over." "Then why did you call me today?" Victor shot back, his eyes narrowing. "Because Arthur hasn't touched me in over a week," Brenda admitted, her voice trembling, her secret laid bare. "You two can resolve this elsewhere," I stated, interrupting their pathetic exchange, my voice devoid of emotion. "What do you mean?" Brenda asked, her voice trembling, confusion mingling with fear. "I mean, you two have been carrying on for weeks. You might as well remain together. Victor, assist her in packing, and you can be out of here in 20 minutes, or grab her essentials now and return tomorrow while I'm at work." They both stared at me in stunned silence, their faces masks of shock. "I'm not taking her anywhere," Victor finally stated, his voice firm. "Oh, yes you are," I asserted firmly, my gaze unwavering. "She's your responsibility now. Whether you move her in with your wife or secure her a room at a budget inn, that's entirely up to you. But if you wish to preserve your marriage, you had better resolve this swiftly and quietly." "Brenda," I stated calmly, turning my full attention to her, "you didn't merely cheat on me. You betrayed everything we constructed together. Our marriage, our daughter, our memories, and our aspirations for the future, the life we meticulously built. For 2 months, you treated Willow and me as though we were insignificant, a burden. This is over." Tears streamed down her face, her carefully constructed world crumbling around her. "Arthur, I swear I only love you. Victor was a mistake. I felt aged and insecure, and he made me feel desirable again. Please, grant me another opportunity. Women need to feel attractive. Brenda, did I ever make you feel unattractive? Did I ever fail to praise your beauty, your strength? I always envisioned us growing old together, our love deepening with each passing year. This was not solely about appearances or physical intimacy. I genuinely loved you, your heart, your spirit." I replied, my voice filled with a profound sorrow. Her tone turned defensive, a flicker of her old fire. "What about that girl you kissed? You're doing the same thing." "No, it's different," I countered, shaking my head. That was the first time I kissed Serena, and we haven't been intimate. I only met her because of your fabrications, your lies about PDA meetings and late nights at work. Fabrications? She inquired, confused. Serena is Willow's teacher. I explained, laying out the truth in stark terms. If you had attended even one PDA meeting in the past 2 months, I would never have encountered her. Our paths would never have crossed. I presented it plainly. Tomorrow, my attorney will serve you with divorce papers. You have two alternatives. Sign the amicable ones, citing irreconcilable differences, which will be quick and clean, or I will file the rigorous set, which will drag your name and Victor's through the mud. Either way, the house remains with me. It belongs to my parents. We will share custody of Willow, and you may visit her whenever you desire, but our life together is over. I don't want a divorce, Brenda pleaded, her voice a desperate wail. I'll do anything. Sleep with her for retribution if you wish. Then we can move past this. We can pretend this never happened. You and Victor were just engaging in casual intimacy, correct? I inquired, raising an eyebrow. Both nodded swiftly, eager to confirm the triviality of their affair. Well, Serena and I are far more than that. As soon as I am free, I'm going to marry her, and she will be Willow's new mother. Victor shifted uncomfortably, clearly wanting to escape the explosive scene. Why don't you two resolve this after I depart? No, Victor, I stated firmly, she is accompanying you. Either you take her, or your marriage ends tonight. The choice is yours. Brenda attempted another approach, a last-ditch effort. I'll stay with my mother for a few days until you calm down. You are an adult, Brenda. Do whatever you wish, as long as it involves departing from here, I stated, my resolve unwavering, before heading to the kitchen to call Willow and Chloe to remove them from the volatile situation. The subsequent weeks unfolded peacefully, a calm after the emotional storm. I dedicated myself to indulging Willow, showering her with attention and deepening my acquaintance with Serena. While we spent considerable time together, enjoying each other's company and growing closer, Serena and I agreed to defer intimacy until our wedding night, a mutual decision born of respect and a desire to build a strong foundation. Brenda telephoned incessantly at work and home, her calls a constant reminder of the past, but I disregarded her, allowing them to go to voicemail. Nevertheless, I ensured she had access to Willow whenever she desired, setting up specific times for calls and visits, knowing Willow needed her mother. Her parents also called, imploring me to reconcile with her, asserting that a single error should not dismantle a family. I informed them, patiently but firmly, that I, too, deserved a joyful life, and I could not be content with someone who had betrayed me for over a month and might even be expecting another man's child. The thought a perpetual cloud over me. At one juncture, Brenda, desperate, visited Serena's academy, a public plea for another opportunity. Serena listened, her expression compassionate, but recounted her own painful experience of being betrayed and the soul-crushing feeling of giving everything to someone who did not value it, who took it for granted. I believe that helped Brenda comprehend what I was enduring, the depth of the wound she had inflicted. What affected her most profoundly was her arrival at the house one evening, unannounced. She observed Serena grading papers on the porch swing, a picture of domestic tranquility, while I napped peacefully with my head in her lap, feeling safe and cherished. Willow sat nearby, chatting animatedly on the phone like any preteen, her laughter echoing in the twilight. We appeared to be a joyful, loving family. Everything Brenda had discarded, everything she now longed for. She stood there weeping, a solitary figure in the shadows, but I did not perceive her until Serena kissed me awake, her touch gentle, and pointed toward Brenda's retreating figure, her car already backing out of the driveway. Go speak with her, Serena urged, her voice soft, understanding the need for closure. I intercepted Brenda as she reached her car, tears streaming down her face. Did you require something? I inquired, maintaining a neutral tone, unwilling to give her false hope. And why haven't you returned the signed papers yet? I came to discuss us, she sniffled, her voice thick with emotion. You're not doing this correctly. Not doing what correctly? I asked, genuinely perplexed by her absurd statement. Arthur, she began, her voice gaining a desperate urgency. I spoke to some divorced friends. They said you should have been angry, fought for me, and disputed custody of Willow. You were supposed to relocate to a miserable little apartment, lonely and bitter, until I offered a casual encounter. Then we'd slowly reconstruct our relationship with the understanding that I love you, but might occasionally take lovers, and you turn a blind eye to avoid losing me again. She was weeping now, openly, hysterically. Victor was merely a transient diversion. He wasn't as good as you, and honestly, I simply wanted to feel youthful and unrestrained again for a while, to escape the monotony. I thought I had it all, you for tender, loving moments, and him for something rough and daring. But then you ceased being intimate with me, and I grew desperate. I panicked. I ended it with Victor, but when I saw you with Serena, I panicked even more. At first, I was furious, consumed by jealousy, but later, I thought it might equalize things. If you slept with her, we could consider it even, and I could win you back. I went to see her last week. She spoke to me about your relationship and even helped me understand myself better, my own failings. Then I realized the truth. She truly loves you, probably as much as I do. She's not going to relinquish you. It struck me that I've lost you, truly lost you, and I came today hoping to dissuade you from the divorce. I thought perhaps you'd agree to spend 2 months with her, then return to rebuild our marriage and family. But I see now that you're happy, truly happy, and she's even won over Willow. You three resemble the family we never truly were, the family I neglected. Her tears flowed freely, wetting her cheeks. I ruined everything. Victor never cared about me. He exploited me. He's already moved on to one of the secretaries, a new conquest. The people at work either avoid me or treat me as nothing more than a laughingstock. I'm residing on my parents' couch, a charity case, and I'm the subject of ridicule among our former friends. Even Willow acts as though I'm a stranger when I call. I've lost my husband, my daughter, my home, my future, and the man I thought I'd grow old with, all for naught. Isn't there any way to rectify this? She pleaded, her voice breaking. I'm sorry, Brenda, I said gently, my voice filled with pity, but no regret. You've brought up many points, but you've overlooked others. What people told you about how this should unfold is irrelevant. Every situation is distinct. Every heart breaks differently. The house was never yours. It has been in my family for generations. I wasn't going to contend for you because the moment you were unfaithful, I no longer desired you. You became a stranger. Victor should have fought to have you, but he didn't care enough. He valued his own convenience more. As for how people are treating you, actions have repercussions, and you are facing yours. When I discovered your involvement with Victor, I was devastated, shattered, and I did not deserve that pain. You didn't lose everything. You cast it aside, you threw it away, and it is now with someone who cherishes it more than you ever did, someone who sees its true value. I looked at her as she wept, her face a mask of sorrow. Sometimes, when something is broken, it cannot be mended. Whether you love someone for 14 years or 14 seconds, breaking their heart inflicts the same anguish. When you break promises to someone who loves you, you risk losing them eternally. Brenda, I understand this is difficult for you, but regarding Willow, you are still her mother and always will be. I will never prevent you from seeing her. You are welcome to come over for dinner or spend holidays with us. Serena won't object. She is too kind. But there will never be another opportunity for us, not for a future together. Brenda signed the divorce papers, the finality sealed with her shaky signature, and it was finalized without further argument. I sued Victor Hayes for the emotional distress he inflicted upon Willow and me, and also initiated legal action against the company where he and Brenda were employed, citing a hostile work environment and negligence. Both were terminated. Victor's wife divorced him, appropriating all their assets, leaving him destitute, and he vanished from our lives, a mere footnote in my history. Brenda permanently relocated with her parents, becoming reclusive, her world having shrunk to the confines of her childhood home. Willow visited her often, and while their bond was not as robust as Willow's with Serena, it gradually improved, a fragile but growing connection. I never forgave Brenda for the pain she caused me, the deep wound she inflicted, though Serena's profound love entirely mended my heart, healing the raw edges. Over the years, Brenda and Serena, in a strange turn of fate, became friends, a testament to Serena's boundless empathy. And Serena was one of the few individuals capable of coaxing Brenda out of her withdrawn state, encouraging her to re-engage with the world. 2 decades later, tragedy struck, swift and merciless. Willow was grown, married, and had her own family, a beautiful legacy. Serena and I had experienced 2 decades brimming with affection and joy, our lives intertwined, a tapestry of shared laughter, quiet evenings, and unwavering support. She treated Willow as her own, a true mother in every sense. And although we did not conceive children together, it held no consequence. Our love was complete. One morning, I awoke to find Serena cold and motionless beside me. She had passed away in her sleep from a cerebral hemorrhage, a silent, sudden departure. The physician stated it was painless, and she died smiling in my embrace, her last moments peaceful. I completely retreated, rendered incapable of functioning, my world once again shattered, this time irreparably. Willow remained with me for 6 weeks, endeavoring to assist, to pull me from the depths of my despair, but I declined to relocate with her or her family, unwilling to burden them. At 55, I was still in good health, my body strong, but without Serena, life felt devoid of purpose, a hollow shell. After Willow departed, I spiraled, drinking excessively and eating sparingly, existing in a haze of grief. On the 3rd day, a rich, savory aroma of bacon roused me from my stupor. I was famished, my stomach protesting. I stumbled into the kitchen, my eyes bleary. "What are you doing here?" I growled, startled to find a figure at the stove. "Brenda," she stated calmly, her back to me, flipping the bacon with practiced ease. "Willow made me promise to look after you. She wasn't the first, you know. Serena told me that if anything happened to her, I needed to re-enter your life and care for you, to be there for you. What if I don't desire your presence here?" I snapped, my voice raw with grief and anger. "I'm staying," she stated firmly, her voice unwavering, a newfound strength in her. Brenda acknowledged her errors, her voice devoid of self-pity, just quiet reflection. "I betrayed you for a man who merely sought to exploit me. I discarded the love of my life for naught, for a fleeting, meaningless fling. After losing you, I became somewhat unhinged, even attempting therapy, but it didn't initially help. Then, I befriended Serena. She made me realize that my life was not concluded and impelled me to move forward, to find purpose again. I began dating, but it never proved successful. Most men only perceive my physique, not me, not the person I had become. I eventually met a kind gentleman who wished to marry me, but I couldn't commit. Serena informed me it was because I still loved you, because you were the love of my life. She wept for me because she cared, but she also loved you too profoundly to ever relinquish you. Before her passing, she told me that if anything happened to her, I should care for you, and perhaps I'd be granted another opportunity, a chance at redemption. Initially, I couldn't even bear to look at Brenda, the sight of her rekindling old pain. She disposed of my liquor, cleaned the house with tireless dedication, prepared nourishing meals, and even compelled me to tidy myself, to shower and shave, pushing me back into some semblance of humanity. Her visits were brief at first, careful not to overstep, but they progressively lengthened over time. Though I did not desire her presence, not yet, I could not deny that, gradually, something began to change, a quiet acceptance growing within me. After approximately a month, I became accustomed to Brenda's proximity, her quiet hum in the kitchen, her gentle footsteps. By the second month, she ceased returning home and began residing in the guest bedroom, a silent understanding between us. She cleaned the house, managed affairs, and exerted her utmost to simplify my life, alleviating the burdens of daily existence. Occasionally, there were awkward instances, such as catching a glimpse of her after a shower or in the bathroom, fleeting moments of past intimacy. 3 months after Serena's passing, Brenda insisted I wash my car. I still possessed 4 Mustangs, unable to part with any of them over the years, each a cherished memory. "Why do I need to wash my car?" I snapped, irritated by the demand. "Arthur, tomorrow marks 3 months since Serena died. You haven't visited her grave since the funeral. It's time. I know it will cause pain, immense pain, but you require this to commence healing. She will always be a part of you, a beloved memory, but you have years left before you see her again. You must move forward," she stated, her voice gentle but firm, an echo of Serena's wisdom. Then, with a faint smile, she added, "I'll probably descend to the underworld before you see her again. There's a special place there for individuals who betray the love of their life." I smiled back, a genuine smile, the first in months. "If that transpires, I'll urinate on you to cool you off." That moment signified a pivotal shift for us. We began communicating more and spending time together, not in a romantic capacity, but as close friends, a bond forged in shared sorrow and the quiet understanding of forgiveness. We were both content with this arrangement, a comfortable companionship. It took over a year before anything more transpired. On Brenda's birthday, which I had forgotten in my haze of grief, a heartfelt card from Willow reminded me. Feeling dreadful, I intended to rush out and purchase her a last-minute present, but Brenda intercepted me at the door. "There's something superior you can bestow upon me," she stated, her eyes soft. "Hopeful. What do you desire?" I inquired, genuinely curious. "1 hour tonight, fully clothed, with your arms around me in your bed," she articulated nervously, her gaze direct, vulnerable. "That's not a present," I replied, a slight frown. "It would signify more than anything else," she asserted, her voice barely a whisper. "I'm not requesting intimacy. I merely wish to feel you hold me." That evening, she came to the room that had once been ours, clad in a thick flannel gown, a modest silhouette. Sliding beneath the covers, she smiled as I wrapped my arms around her. We fell asleep in that manner. Nothing more, two broken souls finding solace in simple human connection. I awoke the following morning with my hand resting on her chest and a tangible reminder of our proximity, a shared warmth, but we both awkwardly distanced ourselves, the unspoken past still a barrier. Nevertheless, Brenda walked around smiling for days, a quiet joy illuminating her face. A week later, Brenda twisted her ankle, a clumsy fall, and I tended to her, bringing her ice packs and pain medication. It felt like the least I could do, considering all she had done for me in my darkest hour. Besides, we resided in the same house, and neither of us wished for her to return to her parents' former residence, which she had inherited, a quiet admission of her permanence in my life. After one night of her repeatedly calling me from her room for assistance, I moved her into mine so I could attend to her more conveniently, placing a pillow between us as a boundary. Her ankle remained sore for weeks, though I suspected she was subtly prolonging it to extend her stay, a silent plea for closeness. 2 weeks later, Brenda never returned to the guest bedroom, and neither of us alluded to it, the unspoken arrangement becoming our new normal. One night, Approximately a week thereafter, something more profound finally transpired. I awoke to find Brenda pressed against me, her body warm and soft, guiding my hands to her chest as she softly moaned, a sound that stirred something primal within me. I couldn't resist. Pulling up her flannel gown, I drew her close, and she responded with an urgency that left no ambiguity regarding her sentiments, her hunger mirroring mine. "Arthur, I need you," she whispered breathlessly, her lips brushing mine, and I did not restrain myself. The first instance was swift and intense, a release of pent-up desire. Her nightgown was nearly torn in our eagerness. Brenda's body had transformed over the years, softer contours, fuller bosoms. But I realized how profoundly I had missed her, the familiarity of her touch. The second time, she proceeded slowly and intentionally, with a tenderness that surprised me, forging a deeply intimate and meaningful connection, a healing balm. By morning, we both comprehended that something fundamental had shifted between us, a silent reconciliation. She kissed me gently and declared she had never ceased loving me. I confessed that I loved her too, a truth that had been buried under layers of pain and betrayal. Since then, we have been together, not formally married, merely cohabiting as partners. We love each other, share our lives, and enjoy intimacy without feeling the compulsion for legal bonds. After all, we had witnessed where marriage had led us previously. Yesterday brought a humorous, almost poetic moment. After a passionate night, Brenda arose to prepare breakfast, the smell of coffee and sizzling bacon filling the air. We had planned to depart early for a drive to Capital City in a Mustang for the Metro Motors showcase, a shared passion. As I emerged from the shower, wrapping a towel around my waist, I heard her scream, "No way, not this time," followed by the unmistakable sound of tearing paper. Curious, I found her calmly cooking in the kitchen, a slight smile playing on her lips. A few torn scraps of paper lay near the refuse bin, along with some unopened mail on the table. "What was that about?" I inquired, reaching for a piece of toast. "Just junk mail," she said with a dismissive wave and a knowing smile. "Breakfast in 20 minutes, then we're hitting the road." I embraced her, a silent acknowledgement of our newfound peace, and maintained my composure. But later, consumed by curiosity, I retrieved the scraps from the trash and meticulously pieced them together in the utility room. When I saw what it was, a familiar logo staring back at me, I laughed so hard I couldn't stop. It was an invitation for Brenda to join the PDA.